Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is continuing the bounce from this exact level of support. And in the immediate short term, we've now officially confirmed a reversal in the price structure from forming lower highs and lower lows to now forming higher lows and higher highs, at least in the short term. So due to this reason, I've now entered a new Bitcoin long position. And in just a moment, I'll be sharing this trade and my exact trading strategy. So definitely pay attention to this alongside Ethereum, which is now retesting a very important area on the price chart, alongside Chainlink now retesting a critical area of resistance. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. But of course, on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, as I'll be talking about over the last few days for roughly a week, give or take, we've technically confirmed a new bearish divergence on the weekly time frame, which is something to pay attention to. But remember, this is not a short-term signal. This is on the weekly time frame, so it's telling us what we might be expecting over the next 1 or 2 months, not necessarily the next 1 or 2 days. So obviously, we can see short-term bullish price action and things like that. But overall, when we're talking about the next 1 to 2 months, technically speaking, this bearish divergence is telling us we should not necessarily expect a significant amount of bullish momentum. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, at least for now, the 3-day Bitcoin MACD is actually kind of lacking momentum to either direction. So technically, we've recently seen a bearish crossover, still technically in the bearish direction, as we could see in the 3-day Bitcoin MACD. But with that being said, we're not really seeing any significant bearish momentum towards the downside. So overall, the momentum in the price of Bitcoin, at least here on the 3-day time frame, is actually relatively neutral, at least in the shorter term. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously the price of Bitcoin is continuing to bounce from my exact level of support that I've been talking about since before we bounced from that level, sitting at around $112,000 per Bitcoin. So once again, continue to expect a lot of support at roughly $112,000 if the price actually gets back down there. And as for possible points of resistance to watch out for, if we continue this bounce here, we may find some resistance based on this previous support here, flipping into new resistance, which is obviously coming up pretty soon here. And that's sitting at around close to 117,000. So as we approach 117,000, we may start to struggle around there on the price chart. But if we continue the bounce beyond 117,000, in that situation, expect a lot of resistance starting at roughly 120,000 in that low 120k area. So around 120k to 122k, give or take, as a major area of resistance. And so those are the key levels of support and resistance to watch out for on the daily Bitcoin price chart. And if we're zooming further into the short term, looking at just the 8-hour time frame, we can now officially see a reversal in the price structure, because previously we were forming lower highs and lower lows, clearly at least in a short-term bearish trend. But just over the last couple of days, like I talked about in my last video, we've already confirmed a higher low, and we're getting ready to form higher highs in the price, which is indeed a reversal in the price structure from a bearish trend into possibly now more of a bullish trend starting to form, at least in the short term. But do remember, of course, we have those points of resistance along the way. And in terms of some short-term resistance, once again, at roughly 170,000, that's a likely point right here. So expect some struggle closer towards 170,000. But if we break through that level, expect more resistance at roughly around 118.5k based on this line right here, sitting at around 118,500. And above that level, once again, we have significant resistance closer towards 120,000, basically where we rejected from many times or close to that level, as we could see back here. And in case you're new to all of this, you might be wondering, well, how are we seeing a new bullish reversal or some bullish price structure forming on the smaller timeframes at the same time as a major bearish divergence on the weekly timeframe? But as always, you have to understand the difference between the different timeframes. Those are on two very different timeframes here. So a short-term trend, for example, may last for a week, maybe a couple of weeks, whereas this bearish divergence on the weekly timeframe, the last one that played out over multiple months, around 3 months. And so during this much larger signal or larger pattern that's playing out on the larger timeframes, we can see short-term reversals, short-term bounces and things like that may even last for a week or two during a much larger movement that plays out over many months. And so at least as of right now, based on the current information, that is the current situation. Still a bearish divergence on the larger timeframes to watch out for, but in the immediate short term, at least for the next few days, maybe the next 1 week or so, we're looking okay now, because we're starting to form some bullish price structure. But also, once again, don't forget about those potential points of resistance, which can also cause the price to struggle at those key levels. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can still see some massive liquidity continuing to build at around $120,000 per Bitcoin. So that's still a major price target to watch out for. But remember, between the current price and around 120K, we have a lot of resistance we first need to break out above. So obviously, once we break out above these levels, then we have that 120K target right here. And then once again, expect a lot of resistance at closer towards 120,000 if we can actually make it there. And so with all of that being said, what is my trading strategy right now? And well, at least just in the short term, talking about the next few days, maybe the next 1 or 2 weeks max, I'm currently in a short-term Bitcoin long position, obviously taking advantage of this new bullish price structure just now starting to play out. And I only just entered this trade at this latest little breakout here. Once we actually broke these highs right here, essentially, I was looking to enter a new trade. So as you can see right here, just a matter of hours ago, I just now opened this new long position, trading this new bullish move towards the upside, which may end up lasting maybe just a few days, maybe a week. Once again, just talking about the shorter term here. And obviously, if you've been watching my videos over the last 1 to 2 weeks, you'll know that I did actually take some short positions on some of the altcoins due to the fact that, of course, we're seeing some short-term bearish signals as a lot of altcoins were running into major resistance like Ethereum is right now, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But first, giving you a quick update on my short positions. First of all, I did have a small XRP short position, which I've now basically closed, as you can see right here. Basically just in a small profit, around $300 profit. A SUI short position, around $1,300 profit, basically now closed. And that ETH short position essentially now closed once again, secured over 2,200 USD in profits. And so even though I got a lot of comments in these videos over the last 1 week telling me there's no way I could possibly profit from my short positions and that I'm just basically going to get wrecked on my positions. But obviously you can see here, I've come away with well over 4,000, almost 5,000 USD in profits just from some small short positions over the last 1 to 2 weeks. And I've now essentially rolled these profits into a new Bitcoin long position, currently around a $700,000 Bitcoin long position, just starting to enter into the profits, as we can see right here. And basically the plan for this 700K Bitcoin long position is to look at some potential points of resistance along the way towards the upside to slightly reduce the size of the trade at each of those points of resistance. So not close the entire trade at any one level, but for example, if we approach around 117,000, I might slightly reduce the size of the trade soon, just taking a small amount of profits off the table, but still leaving a lot of the trade open in case we just continue more bullish price action. And then if we do continue more bullish price action, maybe at the next resistance at around 118.5K, or if we break through that level closer towards 120,000 to each of these levels, I'll just slightly reduce the size of the trade, taking a bit of profits off the table each time. And also, as the trade moves further and further into profits, I'll slowly just move a stop loss slightly further and further into profits, so that even in the worst case scenario, if we just crash for whatever reason, they'll hit the stop loss and automatically close the trade in profits. And so that is my exact trading strategy right now for the price of Bitcoin. And of course, those previous altcoin trades now essentially closed. But as always, if there's any new trading opportunities, I will be sharing them here on the channel very transparently as always. And if you want to take trades just like this for yourself to make a lot of easy profits in the crypto market, like what I'm doing right now, and like what I've been doing over the last 1 week, even during bearish price action, of course, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And personally, I'm taking these trades right here over on BTNX. So I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, you can claim up to $40,000 in trading bonuses. And also, if you deposit just $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your BTNX account. But these bonuses are only available if you use that first link below this video to actually make your BTNX account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well get set up ready to go using that link below this video to take advantage of these major bonuses here. And in case you're wondering, BTNX is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want BTNX as an exchange, there's also 2bit as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page where you can also claim some massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, up to $50,000 in trading bonuses, and also a $30 sign up bonus and a 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT. So for example, if you deposit just $1,000, you also get a $200 bonus into your 2bit account. But once again, only if you use that link. So seriously, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, check these exchanges out. Second and first link below this video. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance, and right now on the 3-day time frame, on the 3-day Bitcoin dominance chart, we're currently experiencing a little bit more of a short-term pullback. And so obviously in the immediate short term, while this pullback is happening, of course, that is good news for the altcoin market. As I always say, if we see bearish price action in the Bitcoin dominance, that's good for altcoins. If we see bullish price action in the Bitcoin dominance, that is not good for altcoins. And so once again, in the immediate short term, this is providing relief to the altcoin market finally. But of course, as I've been saying here on the channel, I'll not necessarily expect a massive altcoin season unless we at least see a confirmed break below this area of support in the Bitcoin dominance, which is sitting in between around 60.5% to 61% dominance right now. And so obviously, for all we know, we may end up seeing just another little pullback here and then another bounce from this support, which is why we ideally need to just wait to see some confirmation of a confirmed break below this area of support before really starting to flip overly bullish again on the altcoin market. But once again, in the meantime, while we're seeing the short-term pullback, just in the short term, that is good news for altcoins. And we can see that right now with Ethereum obviously playing out a short-term bounce and now retesting this massive area of resistance, sitting in between roughly 3.9k to 4.1k. And so for now, obviously, there is still a risk of another possible rejection here. We cannot be too excited, at least not yet, until we at least see a confirmed breakout above this level. So ideally confirming candle closes above 4.1k and actually holding above that area. In that situation, that would be extremely bullish for Ethereum, and honestly would likely see a run towards $5,000 plus in that situation, but only if we first confirm a breakout. For now, once again, we're still just testing this area of resistance, which means there's still a risk that we need to be aware of, a risk of another possible rejection. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame in terms of support to watch out for in case we see another rejection here, I would now expect support at roughly 3.5k now that we're back above that level, and below that we have some major support in between roughly 3250 to 3350, so roughly 3.3k and just slightly either side of 3.3k acting as support. And also on the daily Ethereum price chart, technically speaking, we still have a bearish divergence to watch out for, but if the price creates a new higher high here, at least temporarily, that would invalidate this bearish divergence, but possibly form a new bearish divergence. And this is exactly what I've explained in much more detail in recent videos here on the channel over the last few days. I said, even if we continue a short-term pump, which may very much happen, even if that happens, and if we form a slight little higher high, confirming above around 3.9k, but still struggling in this area of resistance, let's just say if we make it closer towards 4,000 and then start to maybe see another little pullback, in that situation, there's a good chance that the daily Ethereum RSI will still be sitting in lower highs, which means we'd have just another higher high in the price and another lower high in the RSI, forming an even larger bearish divergence, just like what we saw back here. Because we could see multiple times during the second half of May entering into early June this year, each time the price pushed a little bit higher in the price action, obviously forming a slight higher high in the price, obviously a lot of people in the short term would have gotten very excited thinking that that's the start of the next major bullish move. But if you're paying attention to the RSI was still forming lower highs each time the price was forming a higher high, simply just forming a larger bearish divergence and still pointing towards a lack in bullish momentum. And so this is why I'm just saying be cautious, at least for now. Yes, in the short term, while Bitcoin plays out this short-term bullish relief, and especially if the Bitcoin dominance is seeing a pullback, once again, maybe for a couple of days, just in the short term, this is good news for the altcoin market. But just be aware of these potential risks of potentially just another bearish divergence forming maybe in the next few days or over the next week, especially if we still fail to break out above this area of resistance. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 2-day time frame, it's a similar situation for Solana. Obviously, at least for now, we're continuing a short-term bullish relief alongside Ethereum and Bitcoin. As I always say, Solana and a lot of the top altcoins out there follow very similar price action to whatever Bitcoin is doing. And especially while that Bitcoin dominance is experiencing this short-term pullback, once again, that is helping a lot of the altcoin market. So overall, expect a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief as a very likely scenario in the coming days for the price of Solana, especially now that we're finally trading back above around 167 to 170, which at least in the short term has been acting as some short-term resistance. But if we can now hold above this level, ideally as new support, once again at around 167 to 170, now acting as new support, if we now hold above that level, in that situation, expect to move at least up towards roughly 180 180 as the next short-term level of resistance. And then above that, we have a very significant area of resistance in between around 190 to 200. And if the price were to actually break back below around 167, in that situation, our next support is sitting at around 156. And below that, we have some major support in between 143 to 146. But overall, once again, just in the short term, as I just said earlier, continue to expect a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief as a very likely scenario, especially while Bitcoin and Ethereum are playing out the same. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, despite what's happening in the short term on the smaller time frames, we still have to be aware about this major bearish divergence, which is technically still confirmed on the weekly XRP price chart. But remember, anything on the weekly time frame is not a short-term signal. This is not telling us that we're going to see some bearish price action today or tomorrow. It's telling us that maybe over the next 1 or 2 months, we should be cautious, and it's very unlikely we'll see significant bullish momentum in the price of XRP for the next 1 or 2 months, at least based on this bearish divergence that is now confirmed on the weekly XRP price chart. But if we're zooming into the daily time frame, we can see that at least for now, the price of XRP is continuing to bounce from this exact Fibonacci level, as I talked about in my last video. And this Fibonacci level, in case you're new to the channel, is sitting at around $2.90. So continue to expect a lot of support in the short term, especially around $2.90, but really in between around $2.90 to $3 is the area of support that I'll now be watching. And only if we confirm candle closes back below around $2.90, only in that situation, of course, I'd expect to move towards the next short-term points of support towards the downside. First of all, at roughly $2.75, and below that, we have a significant area of support here in between around $2.55 to $2.62. And as for short-term resistance to watch out for, I would expect some resistance at around $3.10 to $3.20, and above that, major resistance at around $3.35 to $3.40, especially closer towards $3.40, acting as strong resistance. And overall, the short-term price structure is essentially following what Bitcoin and Ethereum and other altcoins are doing. So in the immediate short term, once again, we may end up seeing a little bit more of a bounce, a bit more of a short-term bullish relief, maybe for the next few days is a very likely scenario. But the larger price structure, as I've been talking about over the last 1 or 2 weeks, is technically still looking more bearish than it is bullish, at least for now. For example, this price structure is still looking very similar to what we saw earlier in this year, around January, entering into February this year. And remember, during this larger bearish price structure here that played out over multiple months, we did see short-term bullish bounces, short-term bullish trends that even lasted for a couple of weeks or so, heading towards the upside during the much larger bearish price structure or larger bearish trend. And so that is still the situation. The larger price structure not really changed all that much over the last 1 day, but the short-term situation, at least for the next few days, still looking a little bit more bullish now, of course. And if we're taking a look at Chainlink on the daily time frame, Chainlink, just like the rest of the crypto market, is experiencing a short-term bullish relief, but we're now about to test a very important area on the price chart, sitting in between around $17.50 to $18. And so at least based on historical price action, there is a good chance that the price will struggle or possibly reject from this area. So of course, we have to be aware of that risk for the price of Chainlink here. But if Chainlink actually breaks out back above, ideally $18 with candle closes above $18, and ideally holding above that area, in that situation, it would likely see a move towards around $19.50 to $20 as a major area of resistance there, especially closer towards $20. But obviously, we first have to break out above around $17.50 to $18, currently acting as resistance. And in terms of support, if we were to see some sort of rejection here, continue to expect a lot of support at roughly $15.50. And overall, I'd say that the short-term price structure, the short-term direction for the price is of course looking bullish, but obviously for Chainlink in this situation, now that we're just running into this resistance, be aware that we could likely struggle in this area. So of course, that is a risk to pay attention to, but only if we break out back above $18. Of course, in that situation, expect a little bit more of a short-term relief. But overall, the price structure, the larger price structure, especially while the price is still underneath this area, underneath $17.50 to $18, the larger price structure on the daily time frame is still currently looking very similar to what we saw back here during basically the end of May entering into June. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, like what I'm doing right now to profit easily in the crypto market, check out these exchanges, links below this video to take advantage of those major bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto, no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.